All right, so let's make this fun flower in Procreate. I couldn't wait to do the video, so here it is. And here is a quick time lapse of everything that I show you. We are going to get into the video. It's about 40 minutes long, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope to see what you create. So I'm going to hit that Procreate button, and I basically, when you open it up, there'll be a gallery. These came with Procreate, and then obviously these are my paintings that I've been playing with. So I did record a quick video on this daisy up here, but I was talking about a lot of advanced features, and I think I want to scale it back and try again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit this little plus sign up in the corner, and I'm going to hit screen size. So this is just going to give me a blank canvas to work with. I want to take and just kind of move this in so that I can see all of the edges of my canvas. So I'm just taking 2 fingers and pulling the edges of the canvas in so that I can see what's around the outside, and I can see the whole canvas that I'm working with. To talk about some of the basic features here, you have your color palette up in the upper hand corner, and it's going to have either this view, or you can go to this disc view. So you can actually choose your colors based on this color disc. So to start, you would start by choosing, let's say, you know, let's just make another pink flower. So I'm going to go to that pink color, and I can go to a dark pink here or a light pink up here. So this little color up in the corner is going to be what you're painting with. So you're choosing it based on this, or you're choosing it based on a palette. So let's just for fun use a photo to get a color palette. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to palettes. You're going to hit this little plus sign, and then you're going to say you want a new palette from a photo. Okay, I'm going to choose this photo because this is the photo that I used to create this flower. So I'm going to hit that palette, and it's automatically going to bring up all of the colors that are in that particular photograph. And that's kind of how I like to work. So if you have a reference photo, you can do the same thing. You can just hit this little plus sign. You're going to add a palette from a photo, and then it's going to bring up all of your photos, and you can choose a color palette that way. So this is that blue flower, and this is the pink flower. You can remove palettes too by just sliding over and deleting it. So we're going to work with this pink one here up in the upper corner. I'm going to change to black just because I'm going to be showing you a few things. To click out of the palette, you're just going to tap anywhere else, and then it'll close that palette. This button here is going to show you the layers that you're going to create, and we're going to go probably, I think, create 3 different layers, and I'm going to talk to you about why we're going to do that. Okay, and you're just going to tap out just to exit out of the layers. This is your eraser, this is your smudger, and this is your brush. Some of the cool things that you can do is if you are, let's say you're using a brush, and I'm going to show you the 2 brushes that we're going to use. So you're going to double click or click on that, and all of the brushes that came with Procreate start, I think, yes, right here, sketching on down. I have a bunch of brushes that I purchased up at the top, but we're going to be using the inking brush, and it's called Syrup. Okay. So if that screen comes up, just hit done and get out of it. I won't talk about those advanced features. We're also going to be using the smudging tool and the eraser. Now, sometimes these tools are set on something else, but I want it to be the same as the brush that I'm working on, and you can also change it. So if you're smudging, you want it to be in the shape of the brush that you're using to paint with so that it smudges evenly. And if you're erasing, the same thing. So you can change the smudging tool by clicking on it and then going to the brush that you're using, or you can hold down on the brush and you'll see something pop up right here that says using previous brush. Smudge with current brush. So if you just hold down on it, it'll just change the current brush that you're using. Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm in Syrup and I'm in inking. over here on this slider, you have the size of the mark you're going to be making with your brush. So you can have it really big or you can have it smaller. So this is 1% of the size, and then this is 100% of the size. And this is your opacity. So it's going to change the color of what you're putting down. So if I'm using black, it's going to be fully black if you're at 100%, and it's going to be like a light gray if you're down in the 10%. So it's going to be nothing if you're in 0%, right? So let me just make a couple marks for you just to show you. So it's set it on the largest brush. And so if I make a mark with my Apple pencil, that's what it looks like. If I lower it down to a small one and I make a mark, it's going to be really skinny. The same thing for, I'm going to set it all the way big. For opacity, if it's really, really big, if it's big and it's at full capacity or full opacity, that's what it's going to look like. If I lower the opacity, it's going to be a little bit lighter gray, and even lighter gray, and even lighter gray. Okay, so that's just telling you the size of the brush and then the opacity of the color that you're laying down, and that's really kind of cool to play with. The smudging tool, if it is set, this is actually indeed set on inking and syrup, which I want. Just get out of this screen if it keeps coming up on you. You're going to tap out of that. So to smudge, let's put, actually, I'm going to put a color close to, I'm going to put like pink next to this gray color. Okay, why not? Okay, if I want to smudge these together, I'm just going to hit that smudger. This is going to control the size of the smudge, and this is going to control the intensity of the smudge. Okay, so if it's set all the way at full intensity and I have the full size and I start smudging it together, it's going to smear everything. I should really use a brighter color. Let me go ahead and choose a brighter color. Oops, full capacity. This will be a little bit easier to see. So I'm going to go to my smudging tool and I'm going to smudge. Let's just go like this way. Okay. If I lower the amount or the strength of the smudge, it's going to be a lot, lighter and cleaner and softer smudge, right? And if I make a small, tiny smudge, let's go ahead and zoom in for this one. It's going to be, it's really hard to see. Oh, let me go full capacity. That's why. So if I make a smaller, size smudge, and let's even go smaller, it's just going to be, really, really tiny. Okay. If I go really big, it's going to have a really big area that you're smudging. If I go to my eraser and I'm set on the same type of a brush, it's going to erase with the same type of a brush. Let me set it on something super random like this one. Okay. If I'm erasing, and it's really big, it's going to erase in that same type of brush that I was using before, or something totally different. So you could actually do that if you wanted to make a cool texture. You could erase it with, something different. Okay, so let's clear all of that out. Basically, to clear your last mark, you're just going to double tap or tap with 2 fingers at the same time, and that's going to back you out. But you also have these little buttons down here to add your last thing or to take it off. So add it back or take it off. You can do those two as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and start by making a daisy. I'm going to hit, this is all you need to know for this one. I won't talk about all these other buttons up here. There's a lot of YouTube videos that you can watch for that. I'd be happy to do another tutorial, but I'm not today. So I'm going to go to my layers and I'm going to create another layer. This bottom layer, I'm just going to tap it twice and I'm going to rename it. So I tapped it, this little bar came up, and I'm going to hit rename, and I'm just going to put outline. Okay, and my layer 2, I'm going to rename it. I'm going to do petals. And my layer 3, which I'm going to add right now, I'm going to do center. Okay, so let's go to layer 1 for outline. I'm going to go to my palette, color, that little color circle in the top, and I'm going to choose black. Okay, black. I'm going to make sure that my brush is on syrup and it's on inking. I'm going to take my brush size down to about 18, let's go 15 to 20%, whatever you like. A cool little trick here is if you make a horrible circle, you can correct that by holding your finger or the stylus down. So let me make a weird circle with my finger. If I hold it down, it's going to correct that. So let me do that again. Like a horrible shape. And if I hold it, it's going to correct it and make it like a better circle. If I edit that and I didn't want it to be as much of an oval, I can actually pull it by pushing this edit button and then change the size. Okay, so I'm going to double tap and get out of that. So let's draw a circle here. And I want it to be a little bit more perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and hold it and let it be there. Let's say I just wanted, I will show you one thing. Let's say I just wanted to move that circle up and I really liked that circle and I didn't want to redo it. I could hit this little button here and it's going to select my shape and I can move it anywhere I want. Okay, so let's go ahead and unselect that. So there's my circle. There's where I want it. I'm going to create some very, very basic petal shapes for a daisy. So just kind of starting small at the bottom, getting bigger, and then kind of coming back together at the top. And I'm going to run these right off the page. Okay. I'm not going to put them super close together, and this does not have to be perfect because this is, I'm basically creating myself a coloring book. Okay, so I'm creating my own coloring book. Let's just do that. Okay, so I've got my design that I want. So I'm going to click on my layers again, and I'm going to move up to the petals layer. Now I'm going to start coloring in my petals, and there's a really cool trick for this too. So if you go to your palette, let's go ahead and pick like a really kind of like a middle-ish pink color. So I've got lighter pinks and darker pinks available. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, and I think this is only if you have the Apple Pencil, you can create a line. Let's say all the way around. Now remember, the black lines are going to disappear later on, but I'm still kind of trying to color in the shape. Then I can take this little circle and put my pencil on it and then pull in, and it colors the whole entire petal for me. So for the sake of timing, I'm just going to do that on all of these petals really quick. So I'm going to outline all of them pretty close to the black. Again, the black's going to disappear later, so I don't have to be super precise with it, but I can be if I want. You just want to make sure that it's all like closed in, if that makes sense. So you want it to be, you don't want any like white space in between, and you want the pink to touch at the top. If it runs off the page, it's not a big deal, but you want it to touch at the top because it's only going to fill in if like you have like a solid area to fill in. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. So again, if you're just using your finger, you're probably going to have to color these, you know, just like scribble it in like this, you know, and you can change your brush size so that you can do that quicker with your finger. But if you have the Apple Pencil, something cool that I learned was that you can just take and touch and then grab and oops. So I think what happened is that those were too open at the bottom. So let me just kind of close those off, or I didn't put the color in the right spot. So let me go there, there we go. So I'm just dragging that color in to where I want it to be. Okay, so now I'm just gonna kind of go in and fill in any like white areas that I don't like or don't want there. And for the sake of this video, I'm not gonna be super picky, okay? But let me just show you what I mean. If I go into if I go into the layers and I remove the bottom one, so this little check mark, I take that off, all those black lines disappear. So that's what I'll do later, is I'll remove that layer. But I'm just gonna keep it there just for a guideline right now. I wanna go up and change my, the color to a little bit of a darker color in the same palette. So I'm gonna go a little tiny bit darker, and I'm gonna make sure that my brush is a little bit smaller. And I'm just gonna go in and retrace some of these lines so that I see the distinct difference between, you know, where one petal starts and the other one ends. Okay. And this is a darker version of the pink than I used to fill it in with. And I'm having it like right on the outsides of the petals. Okay. Then, this is gonna look weird for right now. I'm gonna go in and just take a little bit less of a dark color, and I'm just gonna put some stripes in the middle of these. So there's always like a little bit of more darkness at the, like where the petal connects to the center. And that's just kind of what I'm trying to achieve really, really fast. Good. And then I'm gonna take and go in with a really light pink and do just some stripes like throughout the petal. So we're just kind of getting ready for everything we're gonna do here. Okay, we have that. Let's go to the center. So we're gonna go back to our layers and we're gonna click the center layer, okay? We're gonna go up here and we're gonna choose the darkest yellow, and we're just gonna fill in this center with this dark yellow. Again, if you have the Apple pencil, you can drag in the color, okay? But if you have your finger, you're just gonna color it in. And the cool thing about switching to this layer is that if you mess up, like let's say I went out of the line a little bit, I can go to my erase tool and just erase. Let me get this a little bit bigger. Oops, see the eraser is on that weird brush. So I wanna make sure it's on inking and syrup. I'm gonna erase. It didn't do it, hold on. There we go. Just gonna erase around the edges, and it's not gonna mess with the petal colors from underneath. It's just gonna erase what's on this particular layer. So I'm gonna go to this button again. I'm gonna go to a really, really light yellow and kind of just do like a really light yellow here. This is where like the sun would be hitting it, okay? And then I'm gonna go to an even darker color, like maybe this light brown here, and then just do like a rim right around the bottom, like where if the light was coming in this direction, there'd be like kind of a shadow here, okay? So there's basically my flower. So I'm gonna go ahead and go in and take out my outlines. So now I wanna be able to kind of see like what I need to fill in, because the outlines kind of help the picture a little bit. So I don't want those there, but I wanna be able to see what I'm working with. So going back to the petal layer, and I'm gonna go back in, I'm gonna choose a little bit of that darker pink color, and I'm gonna go around and, you know, just kind of add a little bit of dark pink and smooth out any of these petal edges that I don't love. So it's not as dark as this one, but it's darker than like the center pink, okay? So we're just kind of building color right now. And the cool thing is that you can either turn your iPad or you can zoom in and turn it this way. So whatever you want to do. I'll just keep my iPad this way so that for the sake of the video. Okay. Oops, I turned it. Sorry. I keep turning it. I guess I'm just going to have to do that. Sorry. let's get all of these kind of nice and smoothed out. And they don't have to be perfect, because when we start blending, it's going to look really kind of cool when we start blending all these colors together. Okay, so I'm going to take off this the center and just take it out of play so that I can build in some dimension. So I actually want to bring these petals in. I make sure I am on my, yep, I'm on my petal layer. I want to bring them in here so they don't look like they're just like outside of the center. I want them to come in and be under the center. Okay, we'll color that in. These are not going to be visible, but you want the petals to look like they're coming from underneath the center. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my smudging tool, and I do want to make sure that it's on the same brush that I was using for the drawing. And you do want to check the size of your smudge and the opacity of the smudge. So I actually want to drop my opacity down to about 50%. And then I want my size to be, I don't know, somewhere around 50% as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start smearing these together. You can do this with your finger too, okay? So what you're going to see is that these lines start to soften up and they stretch out a little bit. So this isn't moving as fast as I wanted it to, so I'm going to take the opacity up a little bit higher, and then it's gonna blend things a little quicker for me. So I'm going to use my pencil as well. So I don't know if you can tell, but the lines are softening quite a bit. And you could zoom way in if you want to, so you can really see what you're working with. So let's say I wanted to take out, you know, this harsh line here. I can smudge those together and really, really soften it up. So what those white or lighter pink lines are doing for me is they're giving the illusion that the petal has some, you know, folds in it, that it's, you know, highlighted by the sun or by the light. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna increase my smudging just for time's sake. I usually decrease it quite a bit, like on those last few flowers I did, I decreased it quite a bit so I got some really nice smooth smudges, and they, you know, didn't get all weird on me. But just for the sake of this video and getting through it quickly, I'm gonna increase the size just a little bit too. Let's just go around and do this real fast. You can kind of see how it's just softening everything up. I'm not being too particular yet. Just bringing those, the dark pinks and the light pinks all together into, you know, kind of like a nice blended look. We're going to use the spray paint brush to kind of help put some details in a little bit. Don't move the iPad, Virginia. You're doing a video. Okay, and even those like darker lines on the outside, I'm gonna actually push this petal this way so I can actually smear it, smear it over. So there's not as much space in between these. Sorry guys, I keep moving the iPad, but I just can't help it. Okay, so here is this, and I kind of want to do the same thing to the center layer. So I'm gonna go to center layer. I'm gonna put the center back on, and now I'm just messing with the center layer. I'm not gonna mess up. So if I try to smear the petals, that's not gonna happen. It's only gonna smear the center. Okay, so I'm gonna make sure that my blending is what I want it to be. I'm gonna bring the dark and the light together. I don't want it to come all the way together, but I just want it to be blended a bit. Oops. So I don't know if you can notice, but like if you have your pen or pencil on the light area and you pull it out, it's going to blend light out to dark. And if you have the pencil on the dark and bring it in, it's going to blend dark into light. So you can kind of start pushing things around a little bit depending on, you know, what look you want. I'm just going to keep going around a little bit, and I'm going to add some darker brown back in down here. I'm going to go back to my smudger and kind of just blend. I'm not getting too crazy just yet. Okay, we're just blending. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my petal layer, and I'm going to take that center off again, and we're going to start getting a little bit more detailed. So I'm going to change my brush to an airbrush, and we're going to go to the soft, smaller airbrush. So if you look on the list, there's a soft brush that's big. I'm going to go down to the soft airbrush that's smaller. And I'm going to go back to a light pink color, and I'm going to drop my the size of my brush to about, let's go 40-ish%, and I'm going to take my opacity down. This is at 65%. Let's see how this works. So I'm going to just start like lightly adding in a little bit of, you know, nice soft airbrush. And this is just going to bring up the like highlights. Okay. If I press a little harder, it'll have like a bigger highlight. So it just depends on the pressure you're using. If you're using your finger, let me just try to do this big one. You kind of have to play with it. My finger is working very, very, very hard. Let's take the opacity down and let's try the finger again. Yeah, so you might want to really drop the opacity if you're using your finger. Okay, so you can see that this one was really heavy-handed, and I didn't think I was being that heavy-handed, but on this one I just dropped that opacity down and it worked really well. So I'm just gonna back out of this and let's just redo the airbrush here. So what I'm kind of trying to do is just soften over anything that looks harsh or like, you know, just like out of place. And it's just giving like a really light airbrush effect. And to me, it looks like, you know, it's like, here's a, you know, here's like a ripple in the petal that there's, you know, more sun is on. It's like bringing it up and then pushing back those dark colors, if that makes sense. I hope it does. Okay. And then what I want to do is add a little bit more dark around the center there. So I'm going to go ahead and choose like a darker pink color. I'm still on my airbrush. I'm still on the small one. I want to make it a little bit smaller, and I'm going to add just like little tiny brush strokes. Again, the opacity is kind of down, but I'm just trying to lighten it or put in some, like, you know, some depth. Okay, so I'm just kind of putting in some little strokes of these darker colors here. It's adding a little bit of shadowing into those petals. This one's a real mess. I'm gonna have to fix that one. This one, it's not too bad. You can also kind of take some color away by using the eraser. And if the eraser is also on, so it went back to what I was using it on before, which was the inking and the syrup. So if I go to airbrushing and I take it down to the soft airbrush, when I erase, it's going to be that same shape. Okay. You do want to check your size. And this one, I just want to kind of correct this one a little bit and smudge it so that it it looks a little bit better. Maybe got carried away. I got carried away. It's okay. Let me just bring some of that over, and then that's not so bad. Okay. And again, you can kind of go back and forth and keep changing, you know, if you need like a little bit of lighter color to come in, a little bit more sunlight, you know, you can play around. So I like the edges to be kind of more highlighted. So I'm just going to be, you know, really like more precise and just bring a little bit more lightness into those edges. And then I'm going to show you something else that I do. I don't have my like reading glasses on, so I'm hoping this actually looks good because I can't really see. Okay. Another thing I like to do is I like to go back to my ink syrup brush. I like to go back to white or like a really, really light pink. I'm going to bring my brush size way down. I'm going to blow this up, okay? And I'm just going to do a really light, fast line to outline the petals a little bit. So now this petal would be over this one, so I'm just going to do the rim of that one. This petal is kind of over this one, so I'm going to start here and then do my white line here. So what I'm trying to do is kind of accent the very edges of these petals a little bit. And that's just gonna, I found on, when I was working on the blue, oops, the blue flower. See, I like to turn this so that I have better angle on things. When I was doing the blue flower, I added in some white highlights and it just made the whole thing just pop. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my smudging tool and I'm going to make sure that this one is back on airbrushing, and I've got my small soft airbrush. That drives me crazy. And I've got this down pretty low, and again I'm just going to kind of zoom in and I'm just going to run that along the edge of each of these, you know, white stripe lines that I just did. And that's just going to soften them up, but it's going to give it that appearance that it's like a really nice crisp petal edge or a nice highlight. So this one, because the highlight is off of this, it actually makes the petal look thicker, right? So, you know, it's not necessarily something I want for like my painting, but you can, it's good that you can see what that effect does. Okay, so I'm just smudging. Now you can see that it's kind of smudging over the background a little bit. I'm not too worried about it, but you could go in and, you know, erase all of that if you don't like it with the erasing tool. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. A couple of these got a little weird. You just fix those. All right, and then I'm going to go back in and I'm going to just go into this like darker spray paint airbrush, soft airbrush, low opacity, and I just want to kind of like give really deep down at the center a little bit more dark. And actually I'm going to go a little bit even darker. So just some really dark areas right there. It's gonna have to, I'm gonna have to mess. I hate that petal. That petal is just not working for me today. Okay. And go back to my smudge tool. And then just kind of pull through each of these, just to, again, it's using that airbrush, a smudging effect, so it's gonna just kind of make those look a little nicer. Okay, so now let's go. If you have any more smudging you wanna do, you can always do it a little bit later. Let's go back, add in the center, and then go to the center layer. So now we're gonna have fun kind of building up the center. So I like to make it really, really big. I'm gonna start by going to my, my brushes, changing it back to the inking tool, and changing it to this fine tip, and then going to like a dark brown, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna add a bunch of little lines. So this is a pretty small little tip, right? It's gonna like look a little hairy for a second. Tiny bit. Bunch of little lines. Not being too precise with anything. Okay, then I'm going to change my brush. I'm going to go down to organic. It's at the bottom. And then there's this like this snow gum brush, so to speak. Okay, so in this snow gum, oops, it just did. It just added it. So I'm going to make sure that the size of my brush is really, really small. And it's going to be on that dark brown. So let's go ahead and start adding in. I'm just going to tap with my finger. Okay, we're going to start, just to show you that you can do it with your finger. You're going to start adding in some of these little shapes. I'm going to blow those up pretty big in a minute here, but I'm just going to go around and add these in all the way around. So I just wanted to show you that you could do it with your finger, but I'm going to do it with my pencil. So this is going to kind of add, like, you know, the shadows down in the bottom. So the harder I tap on this size, the bigger the shapes get. If I do that with my finger, yeah, they get a little bit bigger too. The finger is just a little bit more challenging. It actually really, it does the size that the brush is. This one you can, because the pencil can push into the screen, I think it just, you can change size a little bit easier. It's giving the computer a little bit more information. So if you wanted to do this with your finger, you just change the size of the brush. Obviously that's too big. Okay, so I'm just gonna get my brush a little bit bigger, and I'm just gonna start, just add like some random shapes all the way around. And I'm still working in this dark color, but now I'm going to take my opacity down and add a few more in. Make those smaller. And I'll show you that, you know, again, if you mess up, you can erase without affecting the petal layer. Okay, so we're just trying to make like kind of a dimensional center. I've got enough dark in here, I think. Let's build up some more dark just around the shadow area. And now let's go into the palette and choose like this lighter orange, okay? So now we're just gonna go around and start adding some of this orange color. You can't really see it that well, at least I can't without my glasses on, but I know it's happening. Keep these pretty small. Add some random too big ones in there. So I want some of that orange over everything, and then we're gonna go light yellow, really, really light yellow. And then these are going to be the highlights. Okay, so we want a few of them on the outside, kind of going over where the petals are, and then a few of them at the bottom, and then more in the middle. Okay, so when you back out, that's going to look like a pretty dimensional center, right? And you can play with it. Add a little bit more, going around. Okay, so just to refresh, this is snow gum in the organic brush in your brush library, okay? So now I'm pretty happy with how this flower is looking. You know, you could do a lot of different things to, you know, add to it, to subtract from it. You could get really super crazy and you could go back to your petal layer, take out your, oops, I added another layer. I didn't mean to. Let me just delete that. Oops. Oops, I don't want to delete that one. Okay, so I'm good. Back on my petal layer, I'm going to go to this dark pink again, and I'm just going to go and, so like, let's say the petals that are overlapping the other ones, I want to make sure that I add like a little bit of shadowing, right? So this one overlaps this one, so I could go in and I could do like a really thin light shadow to make it look a little bit more realistic. And again, you know, just smudging those layers together, you know, really gives it that realistic, more realistic look. Okay. If you wanted to change the background color, you're just going to go to background color, and I would go to your wheel. For this one in particular, I'm going to go into like the blue zone, and then let's go ahead and just make that a blue background. Okay. So there you have it. Little fun flower project on Procreate. All right. I can't wait to see if any of you do end up trying this. It'd be super fun. Okay. Thank you.